The film starts by showing a beautiful woman named Jennifer. She is wearing a red dress. Jennifer, also called Jenny, is going to a quiet town to find peace and get ideas for writing a novel. She is a famous and beautiful writer. Now, Jenny is driving her car, very focused. When she is almost at the villa she rented, she notices that her car is running out of gas. So, she decides to stop at a gas station in the town to fill up. At the gas station, there are 3 men. One of them is an employee named Johnny. Soon after, Jenny gets out of her car and asks Johnny to fill it up with gas. While waiting, she sees 2 other men, Stanley and Andy, playing with knives. Shortly after, Johnny, while filling up her car, starts talking to Jenny. After finishing at the gas station, Jenny drove to the villa where she was staying. The villa was next to a river with beautiful views. At that time, she couldn't resist swimming in the river. Then, she quickly took off her clothes and jumped in. After swimming, Jenny took her suitcase into the villa to unpack. When she opened a drawer, she found a gun with bullets inside. Just then, someone came to deliver food. The delivery person was a man named Matthew. Although Matthew was an adult, he acted like a child. Jenny was very nice to Matthew and even gave him a big tip. Then, Matthew asked Jenny about herself and why she was at the villa. Jenny told him about her job and her reason for being there. After leaving the villa, Matthew met the 3 men from the gas station. It turned out he was part of their gang and was treated like a servant. In the evening, the 4 men were by the river, fishing and relaxing. And Matthew, who was busy with something, started telling stories about Jenny to Johnny and the others. Knowing that Jenny was alone, they planned to do something to her. The next day, Jenny was rowing her boat down the river, looking for inspiration. Later, she rode in a hammock by the river, wearing only a red bikini and enjoying the beautiful moment. But it didn't last long. Suddenly, Jenny had uninvited guests, and it was Stanley and Andy, who came by boat. They disturbed her peace, trying to get her attention by going around the river and making her lose concentration on her writing. In the end, Jenny decided to go back into the villa. In the evening, she continued writing on her typewriter, with a fire burning in the stove, making the atmosphere warm. Long story short, Jenny moved into her room while reading a book. Soon, she heard a noise outside the villa. Curious, she went outside to check, but there was nothing there, and it was very quiet. So, she went back inside. The next day, Jenny was sunbathing on a boat in the middle of the river, wearing her favorite red bikini. She got so relaxed that she fell asleep. After a while, Stanley and Andy showed up again in their boat and woke her up. Unexpectedly, Stanley and Andy's boat pulled Jenny's boat to the riverbank. When they reached the riverbank, Jenny tried to defend herself with a paddle, but wasn't strong enough and decided to run away. Soon after, the 2 men chased Jenny, but then Johnny, the gang leader, appeared and made Jenny fall. Without wasting time, Johnny tore her bikini, exposing her chest. At that time, Jenny kept resisting, but soon she was surrounded by the 3 men. Soon after, Johnny told Matthew to take advantage of Jenny, but he wasn't ready. So, Johnny do bad thing to Jenny first while his friends watched. After Johnny finished, they let her go, and she walked along the forest by the river. Unexpectedly, Jenny ran into the 4 men again in a rocky part of the forest. Andy was playing the harmonica while sitting on a rock. Soon, Johnny and the others showed up. Jenny got scared and tried to run away, but Andy chased her and caught her. Jenny was getting the bad treatment again, this time by Andy. Andy was very violent, and Jenny got seriously hurt. After they were done, the men left Jenny injured and alone. With the little strength she had left, Jenny walked back to her villa. Meanwhile, the 4 men went by boat and threw her CD into the river. Long story short, Jenny made it back to the villa. She quickly grabbed some clothes to cover herself and crawled to the telephone. Just as she was about to make a call, Stanley kicked the phone away. Soon, the other 3 men came out from their hiding spots. Jenny, shocked and desperate, bit Stanley's leg with all her strength. There, Stanley got angry and started hitting Jenny, causing more bruises on her body and face. Seeing Jenny getting hurt, Matthew got excited, drank alcohol, took off his clothes, and hurt Jenny in front of his friends. But Matthew, who wasn't very smart, couldn't finish, so he stopped and put his clothes back on. The 4 men laughed at Jenny, who was now helpless, and tore up her novel. After a while, Stanley, who hadn't do the unthinkable to Jenny yet, decided to start. Jenny begged him not to because she was in a lot of pain. Desperate, Jenny offered to use her hands instead. But Stanley, driven by anger, forced Jenny to use her mouth and slapped her. Seeing this, Johnny stopped Stanley and pulled everyone out of the villa. Before leaving, Johnny told Matthew to hurt Jenny with a knife. But Matthew, too scared to do it, pretended by smearing Jenny's blood on the knife. Then, the four men left the villa. Long story short, after feeling a bit better, Jenny cleaned herself up in the bathroom and treated her wounds, even though it hurt a lot. Over time, Jenny got back to her activities and continued writing her novel, but now it was about getting revenge. 2 weeks later, Johnny and the others were relaxing in a cafe. At that time, he asked Matthew about Jenny because they hadn't heard any news about her. Matthew's answer didn't sound convincing, so Johnny told Andy and Stanley to check Jenny's villa. Meanwhile, Johnny and Matthew went back to work at the gas station. When Andy and Stanley went to the villa, they were very surprised to see Jenny looking fine and relaxing by the river. They realized Matthew had lied about killing Jenny. The three men got angry and hurt Matthew, but then let him go. In another place, Jenny took a gun from her bedroom drawer, then went to the local church to ask God for forgiveness because she planned to get revenge. After returning from the church, she spied on Johnny's house and learned that Johnny was married and had 2 young children. After that, Jenny snuck into the place where Matthew worked. At the same time, Matthew rode his bicycle past Jenny's car but didn't see her. Long story short, Jenny ordered food again from the shop where Matthew worked and asked for it to be delivered to her villa. The shop owner told Matthew to deliver the food. Even though he felt nervous and worried, he had to deliver the order to Jenny's villa, and he took a knife with him. When Matthew arrived at the villa, he was surprised to see Jenny in the bushes. At that time, Jenny lured him to follow her. Soon after, Matthew, holding the knife, followed Jenny to the riverbank. Jenny then distracted Matthew by being nice to him. After that, she caught Matthew off guard and killed him. After getting her first revenge on Matthew, Jenny threw away all the evidence and went back to her villa. The next day, she planned her second revenge, this time targeting Johnny. Soon after, Jenny went to the gas station and invited Johnny to come to her villa. They arrived at the villa, and Jenny invited Johnny to take a bath together. After playing in the water for a while, she caught him off guard and hurt his genitals, then locked him in the bathroom. While waiting for Johnny to bleed to death, Jenny played a song while sitting in a rocking chair. After Johnny died, Jenny burned his clothes and cleaned up the bathroom. The next day, Johnny's wife and 2 kids were waiting for him, but he never came home. Stanley and Andy were also there. There, Johnny's wife scolded them and then kicked them out. After being kicked out, Stanley and Andy took a boat with an axe to Jenny's villa. They thought Johnny disappeared because of Jenny. Meanwhile, Jenny was relaxing by the river. She noticed Stanley coming, even though he slowed down his boat near her villa. At that time, Stanley was alone on the boat, without Andy. While Stanley was checking out the villa, Jenny appeared from under the water and climbed into the boat. She pushed Stanley into the river, making him tired from swimming. And Andy, who was on land, saw his friend struggling in the river because of Jenny. He decided to help Stanley and swam to the middle of the river. Unfortunately, Jenny took the axe and killed him with it. After Andy died, Jenny killed Stanley. In the end, Jenny managed to get revenge on the 4 men who hurt her. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is don't mess with writers, or you might end up in a crazy revenge story with boats and axes. Lesson learned. Leave writers alone.